This meeting to order. Thank you guys for coming this evening. I know we're getting down to the end here, and it's easy to lose distraction, so thank you for sticking it out so that we can get this all done and not being at the circus. It's okay, Jen. The first items we have on the agenda, we're gonna continue doing what we were doing last week, going through the budgets while I just pull up my agenda. The first item we had tonight was to approve the minutes of April 7th.
Make a motion, we approve the minutes of April 7th.
All right,
I'll second it.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. The next item we have is to accept for review the minutes of April 21st.
I'll make a motion to accept for review the minutes of April 21st.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And that passes unanimously. And then we're going to continue to review and recommend the FY17 budgets. And if you recall, last week we got through the first page, ending with budget 2410 building inspector. There was only one budget that we made a change to, and that was the Economic Development Commission. There were a few that we voted on until we had majority vote, but those have all been recommended. And now we're moving on to budget 2420, which is the gas and plumbing inspector.
So I'm just gonna say this because Cheryl wasn't here last time, if it's okay.
I did watch it.
Oh, you did?
did,
Oh,
yeah.
so I don't have to say anything
Yeah.
more, so you understand what the sheet's.
All right.
We're good. No, we're good.
Movie you are.
That's terrible, I'm
Here
so
in
sorry.
person, but I did watch you on TV. And you looked, everyone looks marvelous on
10 pounds lighter.
Absolutely, we got that special camera, gives us all that nice hourglass.
So before we
Actually,
dig
before we
in,
do
can
that,
I ask a question about, back on the police department budget? When we talked about that they removed the salary for the resource officer, there are a lot of other things in that budget related to officers in terms of like the uniforms and things like that. Was anything that was budgeted for this person, was that also taken out, or does it need to be taken out?
Yeah, so,
You know, the benefits and all that other stuff?
right, so the benefits aren't included in that budget.
Okay.
For like healthcare budget. and
Oh, I
the
was
health-
thinking more the other,
Yeah,
you know.
and so there was no other, my understanding is there was no other ancillary costs that he had included in that.
Okay,
There was a lively discussion. He funded for it because he was being requested to, but I think everybody knows when he was here, it wasn't like he was actually pushing for that position. I mean, I think
Okay.
everybody knows it, so,
thank you.
no, you're welcome.
And that's a good point. Before we move forward with any of the new budgets tonight, does anyone have any other questions or anything they'd like to better understand or just revisit regarding the budgets that we've already recommended?
Jen's not here, but I'll point this out anyway. We spent quite a bit of time arguing about the planning board budget over what basically amounted to about $1,200.
The economic development,
The planning board.
Oh, the salary.
Secretary
of the
salary,
secretary,
right.
which budget,
That was
1750?
1750, yes. And that was because it was an increase of $1,900, and when you took out her 74-cent an hour increase in pay, it came down to about $1,200. And then we skipped right over the Board of Appeals budget, where the clerical salary went from $2,900 to $4,500, a $1,500 increase. And I'm not asking anyone to revisit that budget, but it was just kind of odd that we argued for 20 minutes over $1,200, and boom, a $1,500 increase was not even mentioned.
Are they the same staff? I'm sorry to interrupt. Were they the same staff person?
It's
I
a-
think
it-
that was part.
No, I'm not really sure that makes any difference. It's just, I'm not sure why we spent so much time on
Didn't
one.
catch your eye.
Right, and I
I
think
thought
the
it was
fa-
all because of 40B.
The 40B
Right.
hearings, that's
No,
what
I
I
thought-
thought.
but the planning
too.
board's anticipating having more meetings too.
Yeah,
So, I mean, I just want to keep, I don't really care. I thought the planning board thing was a little protracted, given that they'll probably have more meetings as well.
Right.
But, you know,
Wasn't that also due to the math, or I remember the part that I was stuck on, I shouldn't speak for anyone else, when we were discussing that, was that they had budgeted 11 hours per week, but they're only scheduled to meet twice a month. So I know that was my issue. I don't know if that was the same, or if that even exists for the Board of Appeals.
But we had the discussion about how they're bound by, they have 45 days to make a decision. And so that means if they have to meet more than twice a month, they meet more than twice a month.
Is this
If it
the-
takes them
who
4
does?
hours, the planning board. If
Okay,
they have to
so-
meet for 3 hours and it takes her 2 hours to transcribe the notes, and then she still has additional duties of mailing things out, it could take her easily 6 hours in a meeting. So if they have to meet more often, then easily that time could go over. So I wasn't really that hung up on it, especially that they had overspent in prior years.
And they have oversight. You,
The planning board.
And that's the
does?
only thing in their budget. I mean,
Or the
what else are they spending their
is it
budget
you
on there?
saying that?
Yeah, I mean, Hugh Hurley is,
He's
is-
an
Yeah.
old Yankee, yes. Yeah.
It's not like
keeps
they're
an eye
gonna
on
take the
things.
extra money and go spend
He was very
in
good.
Vegas or something.
He is
They've got
good.
no other item in their budget, except for office supplies. So I thought it was kind of much ado about nothing myself, but.
Well, it's a valid reason to be concerned, absolutely. Do you guys want to revisit this budget for any reason, or to
I
call
do
a new
not.
vote? Okay. It's definitely valid reasons. Does anyone have any other questions or concerns about any of the other budgets that we discussed? All right, then we'll jump ahead back to 2420. And that's the gas and plumbing inspector's budget. It looks like what was requested is the same as what was recommended and then approved by the Board of Selectmen. Does anyone have any questions or comments on this budget? I'm noting the only increase over prior year's request is the 2% increase to the appointed official.
All right, it's
Would anyone-
$120 a month.
Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the budget 2420 gas and plumbing.
At $14,057, sorry, I hadn't
Excuse
said
me.
it before. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. All right, we're gonna move on to 2440.
so I just want to make everybody know, again, I was trying to save paper. So on this budget here, again, as I said last time, some people put in upfront what they're anticipating, because the board usually does a 2% increase for these small appointed people. Some people put it in upfront, some people don't. Again, it's difficult for me, because I'm always trying to go back and forth. But anyway, again, I didn't want to waste a whole bunch of paper. So you'll see that the request in here was $6,087. It says $61.95, because again, in theory, had he known that it was going to be at 2%, that would have been his request. So it's $61.95, it's a difference of $108. But anyway, I just wanted to let you know, again, I'm just trying to save paper, and that's all.
All right, aside from that change, everything that was requested was recommended and then approved by the Board of Selectmen. Does anyone have any questions or comments, or care to make a motion?
I'll make a motion, we approve item 2440 for 6195.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. We're gonna move on to 2450. And that is for the electrical inspector. 2450. It looks like what was requested, 14,257, is the same as what was recommended and then approved by the Board of Selectmen. The only change I'm seeing from prior year request is an increase of 2% to the appointed official. Does anyone have any questions, comments, or care to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the electrical inspector budget 2450 in the amount of $14,257.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Moving on to the canine control, 2920. It looks like what was requested is the same as what was recommended and then approved by the Board of Selectmen, $8,250. The change over a prior year is a decrease of $200 in office supplies. Does anyone have any questions, comments, or care to make a motion?
Make a motion to approve the canine control budget 2920.
Is there a
Second.
second?
Oh, sorry, second.
Do I have to say the amount?
No, as long as I'm
Okay.
trying to either say it
Okay.
so that whoever is watching, if they have nothing else to do and are following along, know what we're talking about. 8,250, there was second, all those in favor?
Aye.
All, those opposed? That passes unanimously. It's those damn cameras. We're moving on to 2940, Forestry and Parks. And what was requested is the same as what was recommended and then approved by the Board of Selectmen. The only increases appear to be based on contractual obligations related to salary. It's $336,070. Does anyone have questions, comments, or care to make a motion?
And can I just ask a question?
Sure.
This one's a 3% increase because it's a department head versus, okay, that's what I thought, but I just wanted to
And
make sure.
again, I'm glad you brought, because he knew it was gonna be department heads with 3, so we put it in, but later on, we get to the council on aging, she didn't. So that's why I say it's, I know it's a little confusing, I apologize, but each person does it individually, so. But you're right, JP.
And there was an appointed official on 2450. It was only at 2% as opposed to a 3% raise. And that was because,
Oh, because in 2450, they're part-time.
I
That's just
see.
a part-time electrical inspector. They only work on call.
okay, so it's the department heads that are full-time are getting 3%. Thank you.
Is there ever a time when there's no increase?
Yeah, there will be.
And there
Yeah,
have
will
been.
be. I'm sure there
And
will
I,
be.
again, I come, coming from
I know.
a private,
No, there will be.
many years.
Yeah. Many years treading water.
The past few years, I mean, a few years ago when we were having the recession, depression, depending
Yeah.
on how you felt, there were several years of 0%, either for the employees or for the department heads.
0.
0%, no increase.
Yeah, I'm sure. Just like every place else.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll make a motion, we approve 2940, Forestry and Parks for 336,070.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. All right, we're gonna move on to the education budget, budget number 3,000. And this is a budget that was decreased from their request due to the school resource officer. My understanding is we don't know exactly which line item that decrease is going to be applied to. Theirs is more of an bottom line budget that we're looking at this point, because they have the school committee to go through and offer their oversight as well. So what was requested and then recommended and approved by the Board of Selectmen is $26,511 less than when we last saw it. What is being requested is $11,600,968. Are there any specific line items or questions about this budget that you guys would like to discuss?
I don't have a specific line item, but personally, I am opposed to a budget that has increased $1 million in 2 years. I think it's, I just think it's a lot for 7,000 people and 2,600 homes to swallow.
And I would, in most cases, agree with you. However, I know that there has been an increase in the Chapter 70 funds, not dollar for dollar, but very similar to the amount of the increase we've received is consistent with the percentage increase that we've seen in the budget. Or maybe not the percentage increase, the dollar increase. I know that the cherry, is it the cherry sheets, or the budget just went through the, what is it, the Ways and Means Committee, and I believe that they did not decrease, I can't remember if they actually increased or not, but I saw an email where the funds did not decrease through the next level of funding. So it still gives rise to the thought process that what was increased in Chapter 70 funds agrees with the dollars that have increased in their budget. Now, I'm not advocating on their behalf, I'm just giving you that information.
Still $1 million increase,
It is,
and the budget hasn't been finalized by the state.
correct.
Did
But
they
I don't
today?
think-
No?
We can't wait for
They
that.
pass
though.
it today?
No, sometimes they don't pass it till July, right?
Right.
Yeah, so
Passed.
the House has passed it. It hasn't come out of the Senate yet.
Okay.
And then they'll most likely have differences of opinion, and then they'll go into what they call reconciliation, so they'll sit in a room and do whatever they do. And then they'll come up with a number, and then that number will get passed up to the governor, and then they'll, as to whether or not they all agree or not. But you're right, they're supposed to have it approved by June but at least under the Patrick administration, many times it did carry off into the summer. Last year, it did not, but again, it could be a one-off, I don't know.
I mean, visual, you know, I hold this up only because it's on TV and 5 people will probably watch it, but,
But Cheryl's here, so it's 4.
but, you know, the Southeastern Regional gave us this information about West Bridgewater, showing the increase in school spending here, and the increase in Chapter 70 aid there, which appears to be negligible, and how much it's increased, and it really is high. It really is. The school spending has increased dramatically. And,
And we know the areas it's increased in, so.
and
I know.
I have a lot of concerns about $1 million over 2 years. I think it's a lot to ask of people. And, you know, the school committee's supposed to represent the taxpayers? That's who they're elected by, the taxpayers?
So
Yes,
tax
school committee is
residents or-
elected by the taxpayers, so they're supposed to be the
residents,
taxpayers'
right.
representatives to the school. And they, you know, also agreed that $1 million over 2 years is acceptable, and I just have a hard time swallowing it myself. You can vote for it, that's just my personal
Yeah, you're on the record.
feeling.
Yeah.
I think a lot of their reasoning, if I'm remembering correctly, when they came in, was related to special education and all the mandates that have come down. And that, when you look at it per pupil, it's mostly due to one specific,
And it's contractual.
Group,
You know, we can,
right.
there isn't much we can do. I mean, I guess there really isn't. So we don't negotiate, and I'm sure every town faces the same
right, right.
mega leaps, we call them.
Is this something that you guys would want to table and look further into increases from other towns? I don't know how strongly you all
Not really.
feel about this. I mean, do you want to cut it? I mean,
I missed when they came in and presented, so this might be a question that already came up, but, so the superintendent's office is, the assistant superintendent, is that a new position, or are they just moving it around budget-wise? Because it says something about the special ed in here, so I wasn't sure
I know
if
the
it's.
director of special education is now the assistant
Okay.
superintendent. I believe she's going to be dual roles in that position.
So they just kind of move the money around, it's not a new,
Yeah,
Is that a new
Right.
position?
Okay. that's
yeah.
what I wasn't sure about, but,
Yeah, so if you would like, you can see that the superintendent's office is 3120, where the assistant superintendent's been moved into.
yep,
So it's had a substantial increase. But then if you go 3/4 of the way down to 3211 sped
Okay.
administration, you'll see it's almost $100,000 down.
there we go.
So,
So that's where they line up.
exactly.
Okay, thanks.
This probably isn't the appropriate time to ask the question, excuse me, but if we have any relation to children being in school, or do we have to abstain from voting on this budget at all, if we might have any personal effect on it?
I don't know.
Okay.
I just wonder, like, what would you cut? I didn't.
Well, I'm not on the,
That you
I don't
can
work in the
cut.
school, so I don't really know, but that
Right.
would clearly be up to them to look hard at their budget and say, geez, $1 million over 2 years, what can we do here?
Yeah, I mean, the out-of-district tuition's high, there's a lot of stuff that's,
That
but I
kinda
don't
goes
think
with
you
the-
can
right.
get out of it.
Kind of the same mentality of the 26,511 that was cut. We don't know which line that would be, or could recommend any specific line.
So we're expecting a half $500,000 increase from chapter 70, is that what I wrote here?
Yes,
But we may not get that. And if we don't, we still have to fund this.
yes.
That's how it goes.
And that's almost even disturbing. Okay, we'll take $26,000 out, but we won't tell you where. Why can't they tell us
Oh.
where?
I don't know if they were asked to tell us where either.
Yeah, so what happens is that the school budget is a different animal, because on the town side, for example, we can't intermingle, say, police and fire. But the school, even though they're two different buildings, Rose McDonald and Howard, statute allows them to intermingle. So when I put the budget together and I came up with the number that I had to get to, I called the superintendent, I just said, I need you to take out $26,000. It doesn't matter to me where, because I can't tell you, because remember they have school choice money as well.
Yeah.
So I can't tell you, there's no way for me to be able to put my thumb on $13.5 million. So all I can do is I can say, look, I need you to cut this amount. It doesn't matter to me where it comes from. She will have to go back to the school committee and get an approval for that, but she will. And then between now and town meeting, she'll tell me where to put it in here, just so that way I have a place to showcase it. But the truth of the matter is, it doesn't matter, because you could take 26,511 out of any of these lines,
Right, right.
and she has full flexibility to move it around.
Sure.
So there's no sense in me having that arm wrestling match this
Sure.
year.
Yeah, that's right.
Sure. And then the other issue is, okay, so obviously we're not in a recession anymore, everybody's spending money, development, everything's going great. But 2 years from now, suppose things are awful again, and we've got a $12 million school budget, and we're trying to fund it off of lower tax revenue, lower state aid, then what are we gonna do? So, it's really, it's all in the whole thing, I think it's all wrapped up together, and I'm sorry if you disagree with me. I do want West Bridgewater to have good schools. I think we have good schools and good leadership, but I think that at the price, it's just becoming, over 2 years again, and we don't know what the future holds, so.
Yeah. I mean, I did do the calculation, I think somebody said there were 1,324 students. It's about 10,000 per student, and the statewide average is about 13,600. So we are still below the statewide average on a per-student basis, which,
Is the statewide average really that high?
I just Googled it, and that's what it came up to, yeah. I think it was in 2012, that was the average. So, and that's a couple years ago, so.
And that's because we have the school choice money. Or no, that's disregarding the school choice money,
But is that
right?
including like buildings and stuff too, or is that operating?
Yeah, I don't know, it
see
just
that-
was an average, so I don't know.
If that includes,
That's,
Yeah.
and then
It's hard
again,
to
Schools.
calculate.
we're a
right.
town of 7,000 people.
Right,
We're not Wellesley, we're not
Right.
Weston.
right.
But we want to be.
Just tell the tax, tell the people
No,
who
I'm
are driving
teasing.
home from their, blue collar job that.
Right, no,
Right.
I know,
No,
I'm teasing.
right,
Wellesley
no,
and
I
Weston.
understand,
No.
I agree.
Is there any specific area in
No,
the
I don't
budget?
really, because I just wish they had come in and maybe presented a budget that didn't increase quite as much.
Yeah,
yeah, I know what you mean, it's
It's hard
a
to,
lot to take
Sorry.
in. Yeah.
it's hard to swallow.
Yeah.
is it, what are the options?
We can pass it, we can recommend it, we can suggest a change, we can ask them to come in again, and if there's specific things that we want to cut, and have a discussion with them.
Yeah.
If there are specific questions about any department or line items, or how those costs were come up with, we can ask those questions. We have to recommend something, it's
Right.
just how do we get there to
Right.
recommend it? If you
Right.
don't want to recommend this budget, what kind of changes would you like to see? I guess that would be the starting question of, where's the problem, before we just sit here and kind of stare
Right.
at the bottom line
Right.
number.
Right.
And I agree with all of you, it's a lot to take in. But on the flip side, I'm challenged, or I'm facing the same challenge you are, where I don't know where we could recommend a cut, because looking at it, it looks like it's the sped department like they were talking about, unfortunately. And I'm sure they would like to see those costs lower, but they don't have the
They
control of it.
can't control them.
Right.
When Patty comes in and talks to you, she talks to you about this, right? I'm sure she knows it's a big number.
Oh, she
And
does.
Yeah, and she.
No, she
she's
does.
doing what she can do.
And I'm sure the school committee is looking, or I would hope they're looking at it, if there's
Yeah.
specific
We've got a school
recommendations or
committee
things that we would like
that's looking
to
at
share. This would be a good time to share that type of thought.
Yeah, if you look at it, it's all in teaching services and sped teaching services.
Right.
Which we don't have any
That's right.
control over, right?
Lion's
So,
share of it, yep.
that's, those two together add up to more than what the increase is, I think.
And I don't know if it helps at all. When I'm looking at it, I try to look at it without the school choice money, decreasing it. You look at the actual expenses, because they could allocate the school choice money any which way, and I'm not saying that they are, but
Right.
you can look at the figures at their actual gross figures, instead of them decreased by any school choice funds, that where perception makes it look one way or the other way.
Yeah, I think where the town, where we're gonna struggle is if we end up not being able to take in the school choice, if the, the student population in town grows to the extent that we won't get the school choice, that's where we're gonna really have to struggle.
Well, what point, what determines whether or not we can stop taking school
I
choice?
think how many kids
How
you
many
have in the
slots?
school.
Space, I think
Yeah.
it's.
What determines that?
Well,
Like new
the-
developments and
New
stuff, kids
developments
come in.
and new kids coming into the school system.
And the building can only hold so
So many
many
people,
students. And so
I mean,
the
is the
room that they have.
student-teacher ratio, is that some fixed number?
There's,
And-
each student has to have so much square space allotted to them in the school.
Okay, is that
And
what
I learned
that-
that through the school building
Okay, and that's,
committee.
and that's what drives
where-
that number?
Yes.
Okay.
Or that's my understanding. I hope I'm answering that correctly.
Okay.
Yes, so
Okay. Thank
if you end up
It's good to know, I never knew.
with a shift in, a lot of elderly people that live in town, they move on or pass in newer, younger families and they have kids, I mean, those are the kind of shifts that.
So we should
can-
have just built a newer, bigger building with everything in it.
They did
Well,
build it
The elephant in
bigger.
the room is the 40B.
Yeah.
I mean, that's gonna be,
That's gonna
a
be a
huge impact.
potential.
Any development is gonna be
I don't know.
elephant in the room.
Well, you can run for selectman. Oh, wait, no, I already did.
I'll make a motion, we approve, line item 3,000 for 11,600,968.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Is, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
What was the amount you said?
11,600,968.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I thought you said 900,000, I just wanted to check my hearing.
Any opposed?
I'm opposed.
Any abstentions? Okay, it passes with majority vote. 5 for it, 1 against. Five to 1, and then we're gonna move on to the Southeast Regional Vocational Technical High School, 3,200. And what they requested is the same as what was recommended and then approved by the Board of Selectmen.
And this is another one we can't really do anything about anyways,
Right.
so.
Now, and we're at what they call foundation budget, which means that they're at the bare minimum. In fact, Meredith, I think that the letter you just opened tonight was the letter
Yes.
from Southeast Regional. And that letter will certify that that's what the budget was.
It also says when they want their payments.
Getting
Well,
you
could
done,
we
notice?
pass it first?
If I recall correctly, we had an 18% increase in our enrollment. Again, which is only 7 students,
But still.
but it's
Yeah.
small numbers.
Right.
And so with an 18% increase, it's a 12% increase in the budget. Again, nobody's happy about, but the reality is that we're at foundation budget. If you go below foundation budget, then the state has the right not to pay you state aid. So that's why you have to be at foundation budget or higher. So there really is no room on this.
And there's no, if a student applies, we have to let them go.
Correct.
Is that, am
Yep,
I remembering that
absolutely.
right?
And there's no direct reduction on the other side either, because 7 kids, of course, they'd be going to our schools, so
Well-
it doesn't matter.
We get,
Well, yeah, do we
free
s-
up a space for cool school choice.
Yeah, do we take in 7 more school choice kids?
I'm sure that's exactly what.
All right, I'll make a motion, we approve it for 500,282 then.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. We'll move on to 4210, the DPW, Highway General Administration Budget.
So are you gonna step out of these?
Yes, thank you. Sorry, you're right, I forgot. I'm going to abstain from the Highway Department budgets. In case you don't know, my husband is on that department. It's all you.
Okay, all righty, so,
And just for a second,
Mhm.
just the correct word, Kristen, would be recuse.
Okay,
Oh.
thank you.
Oh, no, just tell.
I'm recusing myself, thank you.
okay, so it looks like for budget 4210, let's see, the initial request was 553,718, and the Board of Selectmen approved 553,718, as requested.
Is there, oh, sorry, is there no clerical adjustment here?
Well, there's a 3% appointed official increase. There's a 2.10% clerical increase,
Was
plus
that-
longevity.
Was that supposed to be 2.5? That's what I was trying to remember.
No, you are, this is where you have the benefit of our calendar years. You'll see that in most of the clerical is 2.1, 2.3, even though it's a 2.5% increase.
Okay.
Because in calendar year 2016, we had 52.2 weeks. And last year, we had 52.4 weeks. That's why sometimes last year, instead of 3% increase, it said 3.1. And this year here, instead of seeing 2.5, you're seeing some 2.1s or 2.3s. It's just because of the rounding of the calendars.
Okay.
Thank you.
I didn't know that was Sean's salary. I should have known that. I didn't know that was his hourly rate. I think he's gonna have to do more duties around the house.
So the biggest increases in this budget were in all the contractual
Yeah,
items.
it doesn't look like anything else went up. Other than that, it's only $143 for, what was it, radio antenna?
Yeah.
Well, I'll make a motion, we approve it then for $553,718.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion unanimously.
How would I write that? 5 or,
It should be 5-0 and 1 recuse.
thank you.
Okay, the next budget is the highway. What would be PW? Public Works.
Yeah.
4220, department request 84,650. Town Board of Selectmen approved the same amount. Is there any discussion on the issue?
Can I just ask a general question?
Yeah.
Line, what is that? 5270 for, it says for catch basin cleaning?
You know, that's. I was
Is that the same thing we're doing with all the other EPA stuff?
No.
Or is that a different thing?
Taking the leaves and stuff out.
No, actually, Lenny addressed this once at a meeting, at a town meeting. Well, actually, I don't know. He once addressed at a meeting that he had catch basins that needed to be maintained, but I don't know if this is the same.
Okay. I just want to make sure we're not funding it in
No,
3 or
so-
4 different places.
So this here is a highway department budget, so that means they lift the catch basin and they physically go inside the hole and do the
Okay.
work that they have to do. So that way leaves and other things aren't clogging it.
So it's not related to the stormwater thing or whatever?
Zero to do with toxins going into the system.
Okay.
Do I have the
Thank
right
you.
budget? What line were you just saying?
5270.
It's my notes all the way to the right-hand side, which is catch
Oh,
basin.
I'm sorry, I was looking at equipment higher and I
Oh,
couldn't
they
figure out where you were
probably
getting
need to
catch
get a-
basin.
Yeah, they have a thing that
Thingy,
goes down
yeah.
and pulls
Yeah.
the stuff out.
But I mean, I'll give you an example. I mean, it's, we had a leak in town, we couldn't find it. So we had to hire, a camera company to come in and camera literally a couple hundred feet, because nobody in this room can fit into a 24-inch, and you wouldn't want
Nor
to.
would I want to.
And you have to camera, and we found the leak. There was actually a tree root that grew through it.
Ah.
And that water was
Yeah,
leaking,
that's-
but it was filling up a person's backyard. So that's where it comes out of, is
Is
that,
it a water pipe or?
oh, it's a water pipe, because we don't have
Okay.
sewer.
Oh, that's right, that's right.
We don't definitely want to crawl through the sewer one.
I had that problem with the sewer pipe, the tree root.
But trust
Yeah,
me,
I've had that happen to me
I lived in
too.
Milton,
Yeah.
yeah.
a 100-year-old water pipe, you don't want to be crawling through either.
Yeah, no.
But they do. I mean, I've been out there when they do it. They will go in the edge of it, but they can't crawl 100 feet.
Yeah.
No.
But in any event, that's, and you've got miles and miles and miles of lines.
Actually, I think Lenny has done a great job. But- So, and if there's no other questions, do we have a motion to approve? Sorry about that.
I'll make a motion to approve it for $84,650.
And do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Motion is approved unanimously.
And I recused myself from that one as
Okay.
well.
Alrighty, next is snow removal. 4230. Does anyone have any questions? This is 91,300. I think we beat this to death. in
Yeah, we
past
just keep it at
years.
that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If there's anybody have any questions or would like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion, we approve it for 91,300.
Any second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes, the budget passes unanimously.
And I recuse myself from that one as well.
And then we have street lighting, 4240. for $67,700, also a selectman approved as per the budget request.
Can I just, I mean, I hate to say this, but why are we coming in at 67,000 if we've gone over the last 2 years? Like, I guess, where are they getting that money from?
Solar farm?
Yeah, just,
Like, how are they paying that?
yeah.
He said some of the solar credit had been applied to the
Mhm.
budget, so when I hear some, that means that maybe they.
Yeah, but if it's an actual, that should be money that they took out of the budget, so solar credit wouldn't apply.
But you're right, I mean, however the town accountant does it, we try to allocate as many of our credits towards that department as possible, so.
Okay.
um,
I guess my general question is, how do they pay it
Yeah, I
if it's
don't
over
know.
budget? Okay.
The accountant figures it out, and National Grid accepts the money, and the auditors are okay with it, so
Okay.
it doesn't, I don't know.
I feel like we should increase it, but
Well,
We
I'm-
cut
I-
600 from another budget, should we put it here?
Yeah. I want to
they
get, I
came in
want
at
to
75 last year. That's,
Oh, you're right, I
Yeah.
was looking
Way
back
off.
to
Yeah.
14.
but that's fine. I mean, I guess procedurally, I didn't understand how that worked, where if you are spending more than you're approving. But-
So, I don't want to increase the line yet. I want to have a 3-year run. You could see 2 years ago, we were at 68, but if you
Mhm. Yeah,
recall,
right.
the last couple of years, our winter electricity rate
Have gone up, yeah.
had really skyrocketed, and this year was a little bit lower. So I'm hoping that, I want to see what this year comes out to before we make any decisions on it.
So are these numbers, and maybe these are fuzzy math questions that I shouldn't be asking, but are these numbers after the solar credit is applied or not?
I would
We
think
don't
it
know.
would be after.
Okay.
Yeah,
That was the impression you got, right, Jan?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so what I wrote
solar
down
credit
is,
was-
That's what-
somebody asked about the solar
Yeah.
credit, and he said some of that is applied to the budget, which makes me think that there might be more credit that he doesn't put in the budget for just that reason, so that if
I
it
don't
goes
think
over,
he
but
has
I
any
don't.
control over the solar credit.
No,
I
he
think
doesn't.
that's an adjustment he
Yeah.
gets
Oh,
from
yeah.
town
It's-
hall.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like
So
him and
then
the
I don't know.
accountant should get together and come up with a real number here. That's.
Well,
what I
again, I
feel
think
about
it's been close enough through the years, and if we are generating some credits to be able to offset it, and I don't have to increase that line, so I don't take money from somewhere else, I think I'm just trying to be fiscally prudent with it. I agree with what you're saying about it going over, but if the credits are covering it, and we're not taking it from a different line, I'm pretty good with that. So,
Do we know, Dave, just in general, what we've gotten for credits from, or is that still, we're not sure?
I let the accountant
It's
handle
weird.
it, and to be honest, it's an extremely complex, I look at the analysis
Yeah.
every single month,
Yeah.
and, it's one of those things I've had a hard time wrapping my head around.
Yeah, it's very confusing.
Okay. Any other questions?
No.
Anyone would like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion, we approve it for 67,700.
Okay, any second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I recuse myself on this, only because it's still part of the
Right.
highway department
Yep.
umbrella.
Makes
And
sense.
then, I guess, there's two more to go, waste disposal and tree, okay. So the next one is waste disposal and sanitation budget 4330. Let's see, isn't it? Yeah, 283,564. And that would be the same amount that was requested. Are there any questions? I think we had a lively conversation about the hauling contract and the rates and what happened with that. And the sticker prices would have to go up astronomically to cover the costs. And then the sales might go down. I certainly wouldn't be allowed to buy one.
I'm not sure you're allowed as it is.
I'll make a motion. We approve 4330, line item 4330 for 283,564.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Also approved unanimously with one recuse. And, okay, my last official act of the evening is vehicle maintenance, budget 4,600. The department request is 9458, same that was approved by the Board of Selectmen. Anthony and I visited with Lenny at the garage when we were doing the subcommittees. It was really enlightening and eye-opening, and I really enjoyed it. Learned a lot about what drives his expenses, and you see the condition of the garage and what needs to be fixed, and you saw the broken-down trucks, and, you know, we really had a good hands-on view of what they're trying to do there. It was very interesting.
I'm amazed it's one person. Is that right?
Who keeps everything maintained?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we asked that, and they said sometimes the other highway guys will help, but there's
All that
one
stuff.
person directly assigned.
Yeah, yeah, that's a lot of work, I would think, for,
Yeah.
they
lot of
probably
equipment.
sub some stuff, but,
Yeah.
Hmm.
So are there any questions?
no.
Anyone make
I'll make a motion, we approve it for $90,458.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
I
Okay, that also
think it's a
unanimously
bargain.
with one recuse.
had to get somebody to do it all.
Okay.
Anything else you want to throw in there before I take it back? Any other major motions you'd like to present? Thank you, Jerry. I appreciate
Excellent job.
it. Excellent job, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, then we're going to move on to 4920, the tree warden. And this is a pretty small budget at $400, the same as what was requested, recommended, and then approved by the Board of Selectmen. Comments, questions, or anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion, we approve it for $400.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And that passes unanimously. We're going to move on to budget 5110, the Board of Health. What was requested is a little bit less than what was recommended and then approved by the Board of Selectmen.
So, again, I didn't want to waste paper.
Yeah, that's
So,
fine.
what I did was there was two lines, which is 5112 and 5119. You'll see in Exhibit B, I indicate that. But what happened was, as you could see in their budget request, their clerical salary increase was 7.19%, and their health agent was 5.7. There was no way that could be
Yeah,
accurate.
yeah.
Right.
So I went back and I did the math, and lo and behold, there was a clerical error. So 5112 clerical line, instead of 56,875, that should be 54,171. That would be an increase of $1,113, and that would be a 2.1% increase. And then in the health agent line, he has 60,328. It should be 58,574. That's a $1,500 increase exactly, which would be 2.6%. So when you do that math, the bottom line budget should be 138,935, which matches your Exhibit A.
Mhm.
That means that the year-over-year increase would be $2,613, which would be a 1.9% increase.
Okay. And they left that nursing services at the same amount.
So we didn't cut any, we just fixed the math.
Correct.
Did you ever hear from John Cruz? I know he didn't make it to our meeting the last time this was to be presented.
I have not heard from John.
So we don't really know the status. Have they hired a nurse?
Oh, yes. They definitely hired a nurse, and she comes, she's doing her, I mean, again, I get positive feedback on it, but she does some hours here at the town hall, and she does some hours at the Council on Aging. It is not just for employees, it's for anybody in the town.
No metrics associated with that we know of?
I do not have them.
We really,
I would think next year I'd like to see how many people they see.
Yeah.
Well, didn't he blow us off last year, too?
we did, and then 3 people showed
Then
up
I
at
get
town
over
meeting,
it.
and that was it.
We don't know that he blew us off. I mean, hopefully
Oh,
everything's okay.
he blew us off.
Yeah,
I'm
we've
sorry.
asked him to come in twice.
Sorry,
Yes,
John.
he did. He did.
Yeah.
He did blow us off, yes, he did.
But I know last year we had also asked for a little bit more metrics and analysis to kind of understand what the need, the
Right.
supply and the demand,
Right.
exactly what was going on. And that's what I wanted to
I
learn
think,
more
yeah.
about this year.
Excuse me, last year I asked that. Next year, please,
Yes, right.
there's nothing.
They
No,
don't have, he
it's-
doesn't obviously.
Yeah, and it's hard to approve these numbers if we
Right.
don't have the
Without-
information. But it is what it is.
So do we not fund it, or do we?
Yeah, we tried that last year.
Yeah, and I guess that's
Got our
one
heads
thing I
beat
would
in.
interject, is just the fact that Besides,
After a while, it wasn't worth arguing about, but
besides the two contractual lines, there's no other changes. And I think town meeting was pretty clear last year, they wanted to fund the nursing line, and they didn't have the analysis either. I'm not saying it's right, I'm just saying that's what
No,
they
you're
did.
it was, a
You're
very
right,
small group
yeah.
of people that wanted to fund it, and I think with a better
You're right,
sample,
Dave.
people might feel differently.
Yeah,
And we're here for the taxpayers, we're not here for a small sample of people.
I agree.
So I'm almost opposed to it, I almost feel like cutting it a little bit.
To get a response. I'm just kind
Yes,
of
to get a response, yes,
answering
you know
or
what, maybe I will,
answering your-
maybe I'll make a motion to cut it, I would, it just, even to $5,000. And then if John had showed up, maybe he could have told us why it needed to be at 94.95, but since he didn't think that it was important enough to show up, then what else are we supposed to do?
Well, that's also assuming that he blew us off. I mean, God forbid that anything bad actually happened.
He could have come last week, could have come tonight.
Well, we didn't ask him to either. I mean, I'm not excusing the behavior, and I'm
No, but
giving
you
him the
can't
benefit
assume
of the
the
doubt.
worst.
Right. Be nice to have a call, though.
Can
I'm
I-
kind of torn. I understand the
David,
principle
did you
trying to
did you
get a
ever speak with him?
response.
Did you ever have a follow-up conversation?
I get the same feeling you do, that we're not that, it's not that important.
Can I ask a question about the nursing services though, just because it's not like included in here? Like, do we know how many hours they're coming, what they're paid? Do we know any of that sort of information?
Yeah, I know she's paid $30 an hour, and then I want to say, I think they cap her out at either 7,500 or 8,000, because you have to have the difference for like needles and supplies
Okay.
and that type of stuff in that line, because she's a consultant, she's not,
Yep.
she's, so I think it's, don't hold me to it, but it's somewhere around 7,500, 8,000, and the balance is for material costs. And I might be off by a few pennies, but I'm pretty sure it's $30 an hour.
Okay. Because I mean, if this amount is going to someone who is actually coming and doing the work, then I don't think we need to cut it. It would be nice to know the numbers, I agree. But I don't think we should cut it if it actually is going to somebody who's coming and doing the work and
And helping.
people are coming and seeing her, or her, him or her, I don't know if it's him or her, but yeah.
And just to answer the question, I can verify that the service is being provided.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know if there's been a positive response? I mean, I
Oh,
would
no, no, I
expect
know,
yes,
I'm
you have.
positive there's a
Yeah.
positive
Okay,
response.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I
That's
know
great.
that.
Yeah, I think we, and I don't know how you do this, I'm just saying words here. I think I would like to know how the service is going and what is being used, other, you know, how many
Is it
people are
just
showing
blood
up. Yeah,
pressure, or
exactly.
is it,
That's the
you
kind of
know,
stuff I would like to know,
yeah.
but,
So does she come for, I don't know, let's say Tuesday and Thursday from 8 to 10, whether anybody comes or not? Is
Yes.
that
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
how it works?
Right.
so that's what I would like to know, like,
Yeah,
Right. I mean, we spent.
do we need the 2
again,
days? Are people
Yeah,
showing up both
right,
days? Yeah,
right.
that sort of thing.
We spent 20 minutes or more arguing about $1,200
yeah.
and whether or not she needed 11 hours to cover meetings.
Yeah.
So a little bit of information doesn't seem to be unfair.
But we don't want to
But that being
micromanage a
said,
department.
No, but we did micromanage the planning board, so I don't know what you're talking
Well,
about.
we talked about it, but then we decided to leave it alone, because we weren't micromanaging the department. We can ask as many questions as we want, but
Absolutely.
we didn't recommend any changes in the spirit of not micromanaging.
There were some dissensions.
We could try tabling the
No,
discussion
that's
to see
okay.
if
You know,
we
I'll
do
take that
have
away.
another meeting.
9,400
Oh,
is fine.
I'm sorry, you're right, you placed a,
No, that's okay.
You made a
That
motion.
doesn't matter. I
But-
agree.
we
with
could try
JP.
But
tabling it.
I don't know how we get the information, because I don't want us to be in the same situation we are next year.
We could try asking him to come one more time next
Yeah.
Thursday. I'm hoping if we get through all of these budgets tonight as a little incentive, that we won't have to meet on Monday. And maybe we can,
We still have the capital budget and the
those are
warrant
part of the,
articles.
right, for next Thursday. But we don't need this extra meeting, Monday. If we get through this entire page tonight, maybe we can ask him if he's available to try coming next Thursday. And then if he's still unavailable for whatever reason, then we discuss.
Or if you could just send you the data, or David the data, just, I mean, if you can't make it on nights, I understand that.
And what
but-
do you mean by data?
Like, just how much the service is being used, like, I don't know, it just seems
She
like,
must keep track of for what.
that's what I would think.
I did talk to him quickly in the coffee shop, but that was much earlier in the budgeting season, where he said,
Yeah.
you know, everything's pretty much the same, everything's going
Yeah.
good, is the general consensus I got. And I said, well, I'm not gonna remember the details.
He
but-
considered that his meeting, so that's why.
Well, no, I told him I did not, I'm not gonna be able to remember these details.
No rule
We'll
against
see
that.
you at the, we'll see you at the FinCom meeting.
Well,
And I think he had sputtered it off because he got the impression I was really upset with him for missing
Yeah.
the meeting. If he did just blow us off, then yes, I am indeed upset. But giving him the benefit of the doubt right now.
Well, how many times did we postpone?
Well, we
Yeah.
postponed once, and then we asked him to come the second time, and we didn't get a phone call at all the
I
second
thought
time.
it was like 3 times, I believe. No?
I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt again, where I'm
Yeah.
only recalling two.
All right, well, I'm gonna make a motion that we approve it at 138, 935, since it sounds like the service is being used. I just would like to actually talk to the guy once, but that's fine.
Could
But I will
we
make a motion.
still ask him to come in?
I'll be more than happy to ask him.
Okay.
But that won't preclude us from voting on the budget then. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes with a unanimous vote.
David, thanks for fixing the clerical errors.
Oh, no, you're
Nice.
very welcome.
All right, now we're moving on to the Women's Place Crisis Center, budget 5260. Is that the right one? Yeah, 5260. And what was requested is the same as what was recommended and then approved by the Board of Selectmen at $2,750. Does anyone have any questions,
Is
comments,
this
or
in
care to make a
town or
motion?
Brockton or?
I think this one's Brockton.
Yeah, I think it's in Brockton. Didn't they sent us something last year? Oh, this year.
We, yeah.
Wasn't that the Brockton area?
Well, they serve people in West Bridgewater, though.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
this
Yeah,
is-
absolutely.
Oh, this is the one in Brockton. Many years back, I had visited there.
Yeah, it says more than a dozen folks from West Bridgewater use this service, so.
I'll make a motion, we approve it at 2750.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Okay, we're gonna move on to the next budget. It's the Brockton Area ARC.
Same thing?
What was
Yes.
requested? Yep, this is a.
Serves people from West Bridgewater.
Yes, this is a charitable contribution from the town of West Bridgewater. 5270, they requested 250. What was recommended and approved is $250. Does anyone have any questions, comments, or care to make a motion?
I make a motion, we approve it, $250.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Going to move on to budget 5280, Old Colony Hospice. And what was requested is $500 less than what was recommended and approved by the Board of Selectmen. They requested $2,500, but the recommendation and approval of the Board of Selectmen was at $2,000. And this is consistent with prior years. They have commonly requested $2,500, and in our history, we've given $2,000. Does anyone have questions, comments, or care to make a motion?
I'll make a motion, we approve 5280 for $2,000.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. All right, now we're moving on to Council on Aging, 5410.
And again, I just want to jump in that
Yeah.
you'll see that I have here on Exhibit A is the request came in at 276, 268. In your paper says 274, 186. The difference is at line 1, she received a 3% increase. So that number should be 71, 473. That's an increase of $2,082, which again would be exactly 3%. That would put the full department budget request at 276, 268. The year over year would be 16,487. And the total increase year over year would be 6.35%. Again, I just didn't want to waste paper. And
We
again,
appreciate that.
you know, here's a case where she didn't have it approved yet, so she didn't put in the 3%, even though others did. So I put in that that's what she would have requested, because she can't control it either.
Yeah.
Whenever what the selectmen decide is what goes in that line. So obviously, if they had approved it before she put the budget, that's what she would have had in the line, and that would have been the request, so.
And the clerical salaries already reflect that 2% as well?
Now, the clerical
No.
salaries and the council on
No,
aging
hers are
minus one
different.
person is non-union.
Okay.
And so these are the 5112 and 5119. You know, when I look at the percentages, it's easy to get frustrated. But there's two things that are going on, is that she has a handful of people that are in their 80s, that have been there for some time, that are retiring, that she needs to replace with people that are going to cost more because they are more skilled. And so that's what the increase in the percentages are. And then she's offering to her non-union administrative kitchen staff, she's about 4%, which is a little bit higher than some of the others, but if you look at their hourly wages, they are by far the lowest in the town. And so, you know, at $11 and $12, it's not, I mean, the difference between 4% and 3% is like 3 cents, you know, so, based on the fact that we had a sizable minimum wage increase this past year, they're only a couple of dollars over that. You know, the Council on Aging Director thought that it was appropriate to do what she did,
How many union employees? One?
just one.
Yeah.
You know,
I do remember her saying last year there would be attrition, and she would
So-
not be replacing people.
Out of the 10%, like 2% is the union one? Because they got the 2.5 or whatever, the union person?
Exactly, the
Okay.
union person definitely got the 2.5%.
Gotcha.
And in response to Mo, I know
Oh,
she had
sorry.
mentioned that she was going to be taking several part-time positions and only replacing with one, maybe not full-time position, but one person to
Is
replace
that what
two.
she, okay.
Yeah.
But that hasn't happened yet, right? 'Cause I don't see
It's
that here.
happening as people retire. So I think it's happened in a couple of cases, but I'm not sure there's any specifically on here that we can point out for the current year.
A lot of towns sell advertising space on their newsletter. And, you know, she sends out a nice newsletter. I just don't, you know, she could offset some of this cost.
I know that's something you brought up either
Yeah.
last year or the
Yeah.
year before, or we had a lengthy discussion about possibilities of bringing in revenue for advertising on their
I
newsletter.
mean, I get the Council on Aging letter, and.
You're too young for that.
Yeah, I am too young. They send it by accident. but
I got it by accident too. The lady that owned the house before me.
Yeah.
You're not eligible?
No.
And, you know, every year they advertise tax services. Come in and get your taxes done for free, and they give the guy's name. Well, doesn't he just love it? Isn't that ducky for him? You know, he gets all this
Yeah, really.
free advertising.
Yeah.
And people, they must pay him. I mean, well, I don't know if they pay him or not.
No, I
but
think it's a volunteer position.
Okay.
That was something I had asked about.
the guy who advertises, do you ever read it? Do you read it? The guy who does the taxes? He
Sometimes,
come
I
in and get your
haven't noticed the
taxes.
tax
I know
thing.
what you're referring
Such
to.
and such will be here again. But anyway, it's certainly something that could offset. I mean, she wants to increase these salaries, and I get that. Okay, so if we buy that argument, so what else can we do here to make it more palatable on everybody? And she could generate a little revenue out of it.
She has a few revolving funds over there as well, doesn't she?
Yeah, if you look at
Yeah,
Pete,
it's
I
on
mean,
the
she
second
does
sheet.
do a pretty good job with that. She does grab as many grants as she can,
Yeah.
and you can
Yeah,
see
I
that,
remember her talking about that.
you know, in all, I mean, she's pulling in $70,000 a year in grant money. So, you know, and those aren't automatic, I mean, she has
So
to.
her real budget is really like $340,000.
Yeah, because she's pulling in 70 in grants.
Which is offsetting
I
salaries.
don't know if that's, I have no idea how these councils are run, whether that's high, medium, the people we have, or,
I don't know if that's our role, right?
I don't know.
Maybe we will educate ourselves next year.
Right. And since I know you're too young to attend, if anyone does speak to her, it's always something that you could bring up in conversation. And we did talk about it before with her in here at length, so I'm not sure we could really, well, we could, bring it up again by sending a letter or something, but that,
Yeah,
I'm
no.
not sure we've given her enough chance
We'll talk
to work
next
on it
year.
yet.
Yeah, I do like how she did provide a lot of information about the help that they're giving and, people with their health care and all that kind of stuff, which is very helpful in understanding what they do.
I know I was there during an emergency several years ago. My carbon monoxide detector was going off. There was a big storm going on, and I had a newborn baby. And I was there, I want to say it was a couple of days, and it was just amazing, the community and how well it was run when I was there. But I was really impressed with the Council on Aging. They do a good job. Well, does anyone have any other specific questions or care to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the budget for 276, 268.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. All right, we're going to move on to the next budget, which is 5430, the Veterans Association. 5430, they requested 82,915. What was recommended was a little bit less. That was due to the appointed, was it the appointed official line?
Because he requested 3, and again, he's not considered a department head.
That's
So
right,
he
he's
received
part-time.
2% like all the other non-department head people in similar roles. So the difference was $86.
And the clerical is non-union?
The clerical is union, but she had a step increase, that's why
Okay.
it's a little bit off. But
So the actual budget that we're looking at is $82,829.
And it's all stuff that we have no control over. Or,
No, that's
Or
correct.
the changes.
all right, I'll make a motion, we approve it for 82,829, is that what you said?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. All right, we're moving on to the library, budget 6,100. And what was requested is a little bit less than what was recommended and approved by the Board of Selectmen. There were a couple of line items involved here.
I'm
Actually,
confused.
No, it was just.
nope, it's just the books and
Books and
periodicals. So
periodicals.
Oh,
the request was 427,958. That was because there was a request in books and periodicals 5510 of 65,281. Instead, the Board of Selectmen approved a number of $58,028. That means year over year, instead of 14,041, it was 6788. And instead of that line going up 27%, it went up 13.25%. That gives you a bottom line budget request of $420,705.
Do you know what that, because I know they have a magic number there for state aid, what is that?
Yep, so I'm almost, so,
Oh, sorry.
that's okay. So the year-over-year budget increase, which was 16,731, will be 94,78. The increase percent was 4.1, it will be 2.3%. The $58,028 is now 14% of the overall budget.
There we go, thank you.
And in having that conversation with the director, she told me that that would allow her to meet the minimum standard. So she said that she would be fine with that reduced number.
Again, so, wait a minute now. I spent time on this when I was recuperating from my surgery.
Gosh, between the two of you, don't you have other things to do? I'm kidding. The only thing you should be thinking about is FinCom.
What two?
You too. She's watching the video. You're
I'm
recuperating
having
from
surgery.
surgery.
Very exciting people.
I don't know.
But I
I'm
also,
trying to sell it.
You're doing good.
wrote down a 4% increase
Materials
in
expenditure
salaries.
requirement.
Did I don't know why I wrote that down. Was there a 4% increase in salaries that we need to adjust?
So the clerical salaries are 5112. shows an overall increase of 3.4%. And that was because she had done some survey analysis of some other towns. All of the library is non-union. And so to have parity with the other people in their respective staffs, that was the request she put in. I've always advocated that I'm not so worried about the percentages as long as it's affordable, is that we have to pay our people the right number. And if that's the right number, then we should pay our people the right number. So,
And the technology upgrades, those were new things she was trying to do, right?
there is, because the previous director spent more time on magazines and books.
Yeah.
And so what the new director would like to do is to, out of her books and periodicals line, spend more money on technology in media access. But in order to do that, she's going to have to upgrade some of her lines that come in. They are still operating, although there's been minor upgrades to it, they're still operating on an old T1 line. It is not fiber optics, it's an old Comcast line. And so they're looking to enter into some agreement with Comcast. I can tell you, I'm going off the top of my head, but if anyone knows anything about download and upload, I want to say they're like 7 meg on one and 10 meg on the other, which is excruciatingly slow. And so if you have multiple people on the computer, you just can't get anything. So she's looking to go, I think it's to 150, which quite frankly is still not great, but it's an upgrade. And so she's looking to do that with Comcast.
So she's gonna bring in one Comcast line, right?
Yeah,
It's
so,
still one Comcast line that
gonna
needs to be
use that, yeah.
upgraded, and then there'll be a monthly fee and that type of stuff.
and there's no other way to do that other than adding a line to the budget, because I'm just worried that if we approve it, then next year it's gonna be like, oh, well, they got 6 last year, so let's give them 6 again this year. That's the stuff that kind of worries me.
Well, no, I mean, I agree with you, except that some of that will be reoccurring expense, because you're upgrading the line.
Oh, that's right, I remember that now.
You get the monthly service, so.
Do we know how much of that is reoccurring versus one time?
Yeah, so what she told me is that the Comcast line, she thinks is gonna be somewhere around 3,000 to 3,200. And the one-time expense up front is gonna be the difference of that.
Okay, so next year we think this should be around 3,
It could be.
more or less.
You know, again, depending on how it all works.
Does she still have her capital budget request?
She does.
Right, that was something we discussed at the capital
Yeah.
budget committee. There was a request about the increase in technology and.
Right.
Wouldn't that be the same thing?
No, this here is to actually bring an upgrade service into the building. The capital budget request has to do with Wi-Fi, because right now they don't currently have it. Everything is plugged in. Or it's an old router in one computer that she showed me, and it's hanging off the side of the table. So the point is to try to have Wi-Fi throughout the entire facility. And so there's a capital budget request of around $8,000 to do all the upgrading the Wi-Fi capabilities. That doesn't bring the actual service into the building.
That's right, there was a concern about, she had it one way where it was going to have a restricted access
Right,
available on the
right,
internet.
right.
And then after some discussion, it was going to be just one or two computers were going to stay with the library required, specifically restricted.
Unrestricted access on just one computer, wasn't it?
Or it was going to be restricted and the rest of it was going to be on, I forget
Just
which way it
one.
was going to go. And so then you could get onto the town's technology, the Wi-Fi, the infrastructure we have in town. And after some analysis, it was the cheaper and best option. Say best,
Right.
because that's what I voted on, but best,
Right.
it made the most fiscal sense.
Right.
Am I saying that right?
From what I can recall, I wrote my capital budget, so I have to talk about it if I can.
But does anyone have any other questions
Nope, I
relating
don't.
to this budget? Comments, or
26,000.
want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion, we approve it for 42705, is that right?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. All right, we're gonna move on to the Plymouth Colony, external services. Is that right?
Extension.
Extension services. That is budget 6,600. They requested 500, but what was recommended and approved was, by the town administrator and the Board of Selectmen, was 200. Does anyone have any questions or comments? 200 is what we've given over the past several years, so that's why that was decreased. This is again a charitable contribution from the town.
I'll make a motion, we recommend it, recommend it for 200.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Moving on to the Historic Commission, budget 6910. What was requested is the same as what was recommended and approved by the Board of Selectmen at $1,250. Does anyone have any questions, comments, or care to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve it at $1,250 Historic Commission budget.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. We're going to move on to the Veterans Memorial Day. That's the parade that circles 3 different communities, and this is West Bridgewater's year to host. So what was requested is the same as what was recommended and approved at $2,500. Does anyone have questions, comments, or care to make a motion?
Make a motion, we approve it for 2,500.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. All right, we're going to move on to the debt principal payments, 7,100.
And once again, no control over these, right?
Right.
All right, I'll make a motion, we approve it for $1,661,606.
And is there a second?
Second, okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. We're going to move on to the interest payments on this debt. That is budget 7510.
I'll make a motion, we approve it for $1,139,541.
Yes, is there a second?
I second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. All right, moving on to the short-term interest. This is the same idea. Budget 7520. It was requested at 50,000 and then recommended and approved at the same amount.
And I know we already probably had this conversation, but why is this one up so much?
Because
We're doing more
Trying to-
short-term,
Trying to do something different, yeah, okay. I vaguely remember this.
and more short-term borrowing as opposed to long-term borrowing.
Okay. I'll make a motion, we approve it at 50,000.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. It also has to do with the abatements on real estate. And now we're moving on to the benefits budget, 9,100.
That's helped, which jumped tremendously, yeah. Okay.
Okay, yeah.
9,100, there we are. It's at $5,021,407. What was requested is the same as the recommendation and approval by the Board of Selectmen. I know there was one item on here that I just wanted to make sure that we discussed as a committee, and that was the discussion about the unemployment charges. If you recall, there was a discussion when this budget was presented that we'd slowly increase it a small amount each year to the point where we could cover the cost of unemployment if that were to happen. My feeling on it is that we haven't needed it before, even though we've laid people off. And if we're laying people off, then we have to budget for it that way within the departments and/or through our stabilization fund. To me, it feels more like a plug for just-in-case money, since unless we have a specific plan, which we're not entitled to know, we're not the executive board, but if we haven't needed it before. But on the flip side, if people are here under contract and you have to pay them through their contract, whether they work or they don't work, you need those funds, and and that may not have anything to do with laying someone off.
So this covers contractual agreements as well as just a general layoff?
Right, the unemployment for the town of West Bridgewater is paid by they don't have an outside insurance, so if anyone's laid off and they request the benefits,
We
the town.
self-insure?
Right, the town has to pay it.
But David, if the water, let's say the Council on Aging or whatever, somebody lays somebody off, can they pay the person from their budget? No. They
I
can't.
mean, well, I mean, I guess they could.
Yeah, if they didn't replace the position, where would that
If
money
they,
go?
exactly, if they didn't replace the position, I suppose that we could.
It's kind of six in one hand, half dozen in the other.
Well, if you're truly laying somebody off, though, isn't that, can you replace the position if you lay somebody off?
No.
Wouldn't you be
I wouldn't
terminating
think
them
so.
if you were replacing the position?
Well, say it's for termination then.
Well, then you wouldn't use layoff funds.
No, I wouldn't think so.
Well, if you
well, you shouldn't.
terminated someone, so,
Kind of a gray area.
Yeah, that is kind of,
gray area,
no,
because
that's a great question, though. I didn't think of that.
well, I don't want to get into a big, long discussion, but I know when, someone, if you terminate someone, they can, and theoretically, they're not eligible for unemployment if they've been terminated for cause,
Right.
then they'll fight you,
Yeah.
and unless you can really prove it, it's really a bear. They'll get their unemployment, and so now they're paying unemployment, and then you replace the position, so you are paying twice. But I don't know how it goes with the town.
Right.
The principal problem I'm having with this line is if in a couple of years it gets up to, 20,000, 30,000, what's to stop another department from saying, well, we have this line item where we're budgeting for an entire person's salary. I don't have it in my budget, but they just move it from there to here and to justify the increase of an additional staff person, that it wouldn't be a change to the budget since we're already budgeting a salary that we're not
But you-
exactly using.
Right, but you can't transfer, I mean, a department head can't transfer from one budget to another.
No, I'm thinking of it more in a principal standpoint. If someone's to say, we do have the money, we're budgeting unemployment when we don't have it, or just kind of using that mentality, I guess is where I was coming from.
If this isn't used, it just doesn't stay there.
It falls
Yeah.
back to free cash.
Yes, right.
But
So-
if we haven't been using it and we continue to increase it, I'm just kind of looking at it from that principle. But on the flip side, I completely agree with David's agreements in that it's fiscally responsible to make sure that we can afford paying the unemployment for someone if, for whatever reason, a contract isn't renewed or someone gets laid off or let go for whatever reason, that we be able to afford it instead of having to move the money out of the savings account.
Yeah.
So I can see both sides.
Do you have a number in mind that you'd like to get this to?
I don't, but it was similar to what we did with the snow and ice budget
Yeah.
a couple of years ago. We always budgeted 66,000. And we just said, we always make it up, but sooner or later.
We're gonna
we're-
use it.
Yeah, we're gonna use it, and we gotta continue to get further and further away as there's inflation that builds in. So I just looked at it and I said, 7,500 doesn't cover a lot. We don't normally, as a municipality, lay a lot of people off, but as everyone knows, you max at unemployment now at 36,000. So if we lay off one person, we're gonna get hit with that line. I'm not gonna have the money. And I don't want, the only place I could run to get it would be, say, if FinCom reserved it, but that would wipe out 50% of your budget. So I don't have, to answer your question, I don't have a number. And if things get tight, I would have to draw back on it anyway, but I'm trying to be fiscally prudent to say $3,000 in a $30 million budget, that's a rounding error. So let's at least be fiscally prudent in the future, because we know whether it's a year from now or 8 years from now, we're going to lay somebody off, and I need a way to be able to pay it, and I don't also want to hit the town with a $30,000 bill. So I'm just trying to be fiscally prudent at a time that I can balance this at only a 1.5% increase, so I can do it this year. I might not be able to do it next year. But I just think I think it's fiscally prudent. But again, I think it's the right thing to do, but I don't have a ton of heartburn on this one.
No.
Can I ask a question about the other ones too, like the Medicare and the sick vacation buyback? Are those actual numbers, or are those just your projections?
Those should be fairly accurate.
Okay.
Does anyone have questions, comments, or
I
want to
think
make a motion?
the bigger issue is the sick vacation buyback at 100,000. I mean, in 2015, we spent 18,000. 2016 to date, we've spent 51,000. That's really that's a bigger problem.
Yeah.
But
And if we close, wasn't there like some loopholes we were trying to close on that? Or?
Well, I did. So what we did was, is in our previous union negotiations, your town bylaws allow for 120 days of sick time buyback.
which, by the way, when you think about it, there's about 240 working days in a year.
Yeah.
So that's
pretty crazy.
6 months. That's
And then people did it in the end of their career for retirement purposes. Yeah, I remember this
Yeah, 6
conversation. Yeah.
months.
So what I did is that in lieu of giving an 8% increase over those 3 years, is that for all new retirees, we lowered it from 120 days to 90 days,
Okay.
recognizing that that's going to be a long-term savings to the town.
Okay, good.
So we'll slowly move in that direction for all new hires as well.
Yeah, that's about all you can do.
Yeah.
Nobody does
But again, we're,
Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
how many
private
companies
sector,
can you
yeah.
take 6 months of pay when you walk away?
No, I mean, I don't know of any company that
Well,
has
no,
a sick.
Well, unless you're in a
Well,
union.
well, again, I'm not going to argue on behalf of sick time buyback, but a couple of things to remember. One is that there is not a town out there that offers a 401K plan. There's not a town out there that offers any matching funds for a 401K plan. There's not a town out there that is going to offer to fly you on a, I mean, when I was in the private sector, I could count on 4 nice trips a year that I didn't have to pay for. If I go on a trip here, I tell those people all the time, when I go into a seminar in Boston and I pay for the tea, I don't charge you, because I'm so afraid some taxpayer is going to say, why am I paying for you to take the tea? So I don't
Why
charge
didn't
you.
you just walk?
Start now.
So the reality is that there are some benefits. Again, when
Yeah.
I was in the private sector, I got some really good benefits.
Yeah, but you know what?
So,
Not everybody gets
Nope, they
any
don't.
nice trips a year.
nope, they don't. And, again, we don't do a Christmas party, because I've always been fearful that if we ever did a,
Well, the third rail.
no, but well, I'd call it an end-of-year party.
Yeah.
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
we don't,
Wow.
people get together and they'll have pizza.
Well,
We don't do
and
that.
What's the one at the canoe club each year?
For what?
The party at the canoe club? Is that self-funded? That could be.
No, it's gotta be self-funded.
Must
I'm
be
not
then.
invited either. But
wait a minute,
Sorry,
wait.
don't
to
count that
Jerry's
as your
point,
invitation.
There's no doubt that it's not equal, and that's why.
David, town people, they get pensions. I don't get a pension.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
I don't save
if
it,
there's
I
no
don't
401k,
get
what is the contributionary retirement?
So
line?
again, to go back to the pension costs issue,
Oh, it's a pension, okay.
is that when somebody retired, at one time, they used to contribute 3% of their pay,
Oh, that's right. I remember this, yeah.
and then they would retire, and they could retire up to 80%. And obviously, the state was upside down. So in 1988, they went through pension reform, and they phased in different elements as to what your stair-step percent would be. So the reality is this, is that I now, because I'm in Massachusetts, I paid Social Security tax for 25 years, and I'm not eligible for it anymore. I'm now paying 11% on my retirement, which means I self-fund.
Yep.
Everybody that pays Social Security, you're paying 6.2. So I'm not costing you. However, people that are now currently in this town that is working for you, that's been working since prior to 88, that paid 3 and 4%, that's where your real legacy costs. So the actual table is that by 2033, that 8% is going to drop down to almost zero. There'll be some administrative cost differences, but the idea is to get it funded because people are living longer up until that time period. And I know that sounds like a long time away, it's 16 years, but the reality is that somebody right now who's retiring at age 70, that's been with you now for 35 years, will be 86. And most of us know plenty of people who are 86. So that's the issue.
Yeah, but you don't have to be, I'm sorry, you don't have to be 70 years old to retire from the town. There's quite a few department heads that have retired. We're looking at,
After 30 years of service.
yeah, looking at Don Clark, we're looking at Lenny's gonna be next. We got Beth who retired, Lenny Graff's gonna be next. I mean, they're not 70, they're not
No.
even close.
I was doing the math so that way I could do it quick in my head. All I'm getting at is the fact that if you take a look at a person like Don Clark started in 1986. So he pays a smaller percent than I do. And we're both on the same actuarial table. So if I stay for 30 years and he stays for 30 years, we're both going to get 80%. The difference is you're not paying for my 80%. I am. With Don Clark, you are. Lenny Hunt started in 72. So you're going to pay a bigger percentage for him. Rick Kruger just retired. You're paying a bigger percentage for him. People who came in before that, you're paying a bigger percentage. The state, fortunately, has fixed that, but it's taking years to catch up. But you're right, they get a pension, but for me, I pay into it.
Yeah, but we started this discussion, I think this started about sick leave buyback, and you said,
Unemployment.
you know, you don't have a 401K. Well, I'd rather have a pension than a 401K, because I'm putting, 20% into my 401K, and I'll still be lucky if I can retire.
My point was this, is that there is no retirement benefit that the town is paying for someone like me. I 100% self-fund. I won't get sick leave buyback until 25 years from now, or whenever it is that I retire. Some municipalities have recognized that through the years. Yours is one of them. It's not just in the union contracts, it's in your town bylaw, and it's been there for 50 years. And that's because most municipalities said, we're not going to give a retirement benefit out of our pocket, because at that point, the state was well-heeled and they
Yeah.
were paying the retirement contribution. They got upside down. Now they're charging it to the towns. So then what they said is, let's charge it to the individual, which is what they're doing for people that have been hired in more recent years.
They need to,
So,
because we can't fund it.
absolutely, there's no doubt, I'm not, and that's why during the union negotiations and for our new hires, we've reduced it from 120 to 90. I know it's not down to 0, but we're not gonna go, we
Yeah,
gotta walk
I'm
before
not
we run.
suggesting that we cut this, I'm just saying that, it's
But we've-
more of a troublesome cost than,
Yep, I agree.
than $10,000 for unemployment charges.
Yep, you're absolutely right. And again, highly variable. One year, if we have nobody retire, that number will be 0. The next year, you have 4 people retire, it could be $100,000. I mean, it's highly variable. But you're absolutely right, the $10,000 is not the mover, or the $3,000, because really the
Right,
difference.
it's only at 3,000.
That's not the mover in the budget.
No.
That's very true.
I'll make a motion, we approve it for $5,021,407.
I'll second it.
All those in favor? Any opposed? That passes unanimously. And then we are moving on to the water budget,
there's the water.
4,500.
Put your seatbelts on.
I actually had a lengthy discussion about the water department budget with David before the meeting, and that was actually why I was a few minutes late. I had a lot of questions about it. My question was, I'm sorry.
Can I just ask, this is the one where we're just like advising, we don't actually,
Yeah.
whatever we say doesn't really matter?
Well, that was actually my
Okay.
question is,
Yeah.
Not that what we ever
why
say
do we
matters,
even
but
look
yeah.
at it?
Look at it, yeah.
But my question was,
Just
can we
oversight.
recommend, are we an oversight to their accounting, to their budget? Can we make any recommendations? If we don't agree with their budget, what can we
You can
do?
do it anyway.
Right,
Commissioner.
so, what I learned was that we could cut it, but that's going to limit what they do. We're just going to be looking at a bottom line budget. But if you really look at this budget and what's changed in the past couple of years, their operating costs are very close to a 0% change. They're very consistent with their prior year. What's changed significantly for them has been the debt and the retirement contribution, because their retirement contribution is in their budget, whereas the rest of the town has a separate budget for that, the 9,100, the one we just discussed. So if you back out this retirement contribution and the principal and interest and debt payments, their budget is very close to the prior year. So they're making minimal changes. So even though it looks like their budget has gone up $443, or almost $444,000, if you back out those items, they're very close to the prior year.
So their retirement contribution went up quite a bit. Is that because of the recent retirement?
Yeah, because they had two, for the most part, they've all had laborers retire. They've had one director since the mid-'80s, and he just retired. And the assistant had started only a couple of years after him, and they both retired within a couple of months of each other, and this is the first year it hit.
Wow,
I know.
that's a toughie.
And again, because they started in the '80s, they were on the old
Yeah.
retirement plan. I mean, they were paying pretty low numbers in.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I mean, like Meredith said, out of the 443,
yeah, I know.
that's almost 400 of it.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. You know, on a $200 million, on a $2 million budget,
Yeah.
they're really only up 40 grand.
Yeah.
My other question for David was, well, what if the town subsidized some of that? What if we loaned them some of the money? What if we paid for some of that debt? And that's where we kind of went into, like, the principal's discussion of they're supposed to be run as their own department. If we start paying their debt for them,
What's
What-
their
right.
incentive to do?
Exactly.
Act frugally.
So
or
there are
fiscally
options,
responsibly.
but they're not really good management options. So
Why
I just
is
kind of
this
wanna-
one set up so different from everything else?
Because by state law, a water department has to be funded as what they call an enterprise fund. So when you pay your water bill, that water bill receipt goes towards this department and this department only. It cannot go to the town. When you
Okay.
pay your tax bill, the tax bill is not supposed to go to the water department unless Meredith, what she's suggesting, is at a town meeting you volunteer to put some of your tax receipts towards the water department. But in no case can you ever put water receipts towards the town side. So that's why, I mean, I know I'm speaking a little out of school.
No, no, go right
But,
ahead.
you know, I would strongly recommend not to
Yeah.
put tax money towards the water department, because even if one day the water department, for whatever reason, they got a $5 million grant, they can't give a penny of it to the town side because that's state law.
So would they just get free water for a couple of years?
Exactly, that's exactly what you would. They would balance it against their.
That's exactly. what
Everyone would
we
have
do.
swimming pools.
Like,
I'm not suggesting we do any
they're
of
writing
those.
letter campaign to Warren Buffett right now.
So what are their revenues on an annual basis?
Their water revenues are required to match what their budget is. So, so
Is there
right
a
now.
number, though?
Well, yeah, so what they're saying is that when they look at what the customers are, times the amount of money that they expect to charge, that's what they're supposed to bring in.
What
is
about the reserve? I thought they had a
1966.
reserve.
Yep, so 1966936.
Okay.
They're not gonna always be exact. So this past year, they generated $87,000 in additional income called the water surplus. So I was working on my water articles earlier today, and they're looking to transfer that money against some expenses that they've already incurred on these previous articles. But this year here, they're supposed to, in advance, budget that they're going to bring in 1966936,
Yeah,
and that's how they determine what their budget is going to be.
and did they give us what the rate's gonna be?
I do not have that number.
I got a notice in the mail that it was
but-
going up.
Right, I was
Yeah,
gonna say,
but
but
it
I do
didn't say
know-
how
Gave everybody a
much.
letter, but
It didn't say how
no-
much?
No bottom
Okay.
line on that.
Yeah. So I don't know.
No.
I mean, again, it's a water commission decision. It's, doesn't fall into the purview of the Board of Selectmen.
Well, I mean, if their budget's going up 29%, then
Does that mean the water
water's
bill's
gotta
going
come
up?
pretty close to 29, right? I mean, if they have to line them up.
And I'm not recommending or suggesting that we make any of those changes of moving money into the water department. I was just looking at it from the point of, I didn't think
Yeah,
we
what
had
are
any
our
options.
options? Yeah, what are our
When we
options?
look
No,
at
that's
this
a good
budget,
question.
what's the point of even looking at it?
Yeah.
But it's nice to know that if we are in that sort of situation, that we do have options if we feel strongly enough about something.
Well, I'll make a motion, we approve it for, or whatever we do to it, for 1,966,936.
And is there a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
All right.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. All right, so we have gone through all of the budgets, and we have hit all the items on our agenda for this evening. We had tentatively scheduled a meeting for Monday, in case we didn't get through all of the budgets, but since we've gone through all of them and only made a change to one budget, and I don't expect that we'll need to invite anyone in for a discussion of any sort. We have no reason to meet on Monday, so our next meeting won't be until next Thursday, and that's when we'll begin discussing the warrant articles.
So let me ask you a question. Is 3 meetings enough to get, how many warrant articles are there?
Well, that's,
Well.
That many, huh? That many.
Well, don't we do nothing to like the first 10, or the first 10 or something the same every year?
I
Yeah.
want to couch it a little bit. There are 45 warrant articles,
Oh, my goodness.
more than last year. However, the first 10 or 11 are revolving accounts, so for the most part, that, I mean, again, I don't want to tell you guys what to do, but that should take you about 2 minutes to go through those. The next article is your budget. You've just approved it, so you don't have to worry about that one. You're going to have, I think, half a dozen or so capital budget items. And again, there'll be discussion about them, there's no doubt, but you had ample representation from this committee on it. And then most of the other ones are in bylaw requests.
Oh, okay, okay.
A lot of those you refer to voters.
Yeah.
So it's not as bad as it kind of sounds.
We just had a special town meeting. I'm surprised there's that many, or that many warrant articles coming through. Is the timeline still open to, that's closed now? Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just trying to make a statement that we just had a special.
But
I'm
remember, we
surprised.
have, I mean, besides your revolving accounts, you know, we have automatic articles now. You know, we have a $10,000 web task force for the police department. That's every single year because part of matching grants. Fortunately, again, this year, we'll be moving, I'm budgeting almost $195,000 to put in the bank again for your stabilization account. So that's another article. You know, we've got, we're funding our long-term post-retirement benefits, which is our OPEB, that's $100,000. We've been doing that every single year. So some of these are just reoccurring ones that, for people who have not talked about them before, like you could have more questions, but some of the others, are like, yeah, I've seen that before. I love that article, I hate that article, but whatever, I mean, you know what it is.
Are they available to review before the meetings, or do we just get them at the meeting?
That's
or-
why we can't meet on Monday, because the selectmen are required to take a vote whether to place them on the warrant.
Okay.
And so that won't happen until Wednesday night.
Oh, okay.
So right now, in theory, there's 45, I could have 32 for you. You know,
Okay.
'cause they have the exclusive right to take them off. So, but once Wednesday night comes, then I will have them.
Okay.
You know, and then Thursday, they'll get them at the meeting.
Okay.
You know, and so what we have historically done is the night afterwards, you would meet on the warrant articles, which I think is May 5th. And we kind of scheduled 2 nights just in case, which was May 5th, and the following Monday, which is May 9th. But truthfully, last year, you got through them in one night. I mean, and then what you did on that May 9th equivalent last year was when you met with a couple of department heads on budgets that you had cut, such as the library and the Board of Health and that. But we don't have those this year. So we should be in pretty good shape.
So our next meetings that we have scheduled are Thursday, May 5th. We have tentatively scheduled Monday, May 9th,
Right.
and Thursday, May 12th, if we need it.
Yep, so, in one of those nights, we do have one warrant article, which is for municipal aggregation. I don't wanna kind of duplicate what we're gonna do then, but I have a vendor coming in to explain it, who is a consultant that we've hired, and he can't do May 5th, I believe. I'll find out if he can, but I think he was looking to try to come in either May 9th or May 12th, because at that point I wasn't sure, so I said, well, but if I can get him in May 5th, I will, but if not.
As the secondary date, could you try to use May 12th instead of May 9th?
Sure.
That way we can try to, I mean, if possible, try to get it done in the 2 Thursdays instead of needing to add a Monday meeting.
Yep, I have no issue with that.
Thank
The
you.
vendor is a group called Colonial Power Group.
And they're coming in on,
Well, I'll find out.
Oh.
That's,
okay.
he's not sure yet.
okay.
Okay. Before we continue any further discussion, is there anything else we need to discuss tonight while we're in session? Would anyone like to make a motion?
Can you just confirm those
The
meeting
dates?
nights again?
Sure. I have next Thursday, which is May 5th.
Okay,
Tentative is Monday, May 9th, and
And
then Thursday, May 12th.
okay, just wanna make sure I got it right. Thank you.
And I don't think we're gonna need all those nights.
Probably not.
And quite frankly, the only thing that you would be looking at after that is that you would then vote on whatever the articles are for special town meeting. And the only one article, we only have one, and that is because we have to transfer money for snow and ice deficit. But I don't know that till the end of May as budgets start to close, so I know where I can pull it. So a lot of times you either meet the first week of June, although that may be, we may not be able to do that this year. So I was even saying to Meredith, where it's one article, instead of having to ask you guys to all come in for one night, to probably spend 7 minutes to vote on a budget we know we have to approve, it might just make sense just to meet, the town meeting starts at 7, meet at 6.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're gonna be there at 6:30 anyway.
Town meeting is Monday,
so,
June
just a
13th.
thought.
Monday, June 13th.
And you said be there at 5, or?
Be
Well,
there at 6.
I think you're there at 6, but again, we'll fine tune that as we go.
6:30, yeah.
But- But right now, usually in the past, we have multiple special town meeting articles, and right now, we only have
Be
one,
there at 6.
and hopefully we'll only
6 or
be able
6:30,
to.
Yeah?
depending on how many articles there are. Does anyone want to make a motion to close the meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
I'm
Sorry, I
delighted
was
we
trying
don't
to
have a
turn the.
movie.